Hello everyone. Today in this video I will talk about how to approach the case of neonatal cholestasis. This is part 3 of my video series on neonatal jaundice. So learning objectives of today's lectures are how to define the neonatal cholestasis, what are the various causes of neonatal cholestasis, how will you investigate and how will you approach this case. So first thing, how will you define the neonatal cholestasis, or we can say direct hyperbilirubinemia or conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. If you find that serum direct bilirubin is more than 1 milligram percent if the total serum bilirubin is less than 5 milligram percent, or more than 20% of TSB if TSB is more than 5 milligram per kg. And in another way, we can say whenever there is a defect or dysfunction in the bile formation and the bile secretion, neonate will develop the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. And in this, urine will be dark yellow in color, which will stain the diaper, and stool clay or white in color because bile will not be secreted in stool. Now the causes of neonatal cholestasis. There are various causes of neonatal cholestasis. In this, hepatocellular is the most common. Second is obstruction of biliary tract. Third, due to some endocrinal or genetic disorders, or inspissated bile syndrome, which is seen in the severe hemolytic disease of newborn, or due to ductal paucity. In hepatocellular disease, either it is due to neonatal hepatitis or due to some metabolic disorders. In neonatal hepatitis, either it is idiopathic giant cell hepatitis or it can be due to some infection or toxic agents, as after torch infection or urinary tract infection, or due to sepsis, or it can be due to some parasitic infection as congenital malaria, toxoplasma, Epstein-Barr virus infection, or due to Coxsackie virus infection, or it can be due to toxic agent as in TPN associated neonatal cholestasis, in which the soya lipid is the main cause for the neonatal cholestasis. It is mainly seen in the preterm newborn which is on the TPN for the long time. In metabolic disorder, either it is galactosemia, tyrosinemia, or hemochromatosis, or alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, or inborn error of bile acid metabolism. In all these, the newborn can develop the neonatal cholestasis. Now, in obstruction of biliary tract, extrahepatic biliary atresia is the most common obstructive cause of the neonatal cholestasis, which is seen in the 25 to 40% of the newborn with the neonatal cholestasis. Second is either it is due to choledochal cyst or it can be due to choledocholithiasis. In endocrinal causes, either hypothyroidism or hypopituitarism can lead to the neonatal cholestasis, and in genetic disorder, either trisomy 21, 18, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, all these genetic disorder can lead to the neonatal cholestasis. And inspissated bile syndrome is seen whenever a newborn is having excessive bilirubin load, as seen in the RH incompatibility. Neonatal cholestasis due to ductal paucity is seen in Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and there are various known syndromic causes of ductal paucity. Now, how will you investigate the newborn for the neonatal cholestasis? For this, we have to send the screening test. In a screening test, blood for the CBC, LFT, in which the SGPT, SGOT, alkaline phosphatase, GGT, TSB, and direct bilirubin, PT, APTT, and albumin will be sent. Thyroid function test, sepsis screening test, TOSH titer, and blood culture for the confirmation of the sepsis. And for the metabolic disorder, we have to send the alpha-1 antitrypsin level and other screening tests for the metabolic disorder, tender mass spectrometry. All these should be sent if you are suspecting the metabolic cause for the neonatal cholestasis. Urine for the routine microscopy culture sensitivity to rule out the UTI, for reducing substance to rule out the galactosemia, for amino aciduria if you are suspecting the metabolic disorder. Abdominal USG and HIDA scan should be sent initially to screen out is it due to infections or due to some metabolic disorder or due to obstructive cause of the neonatal cholestasis. Doing the investigations and examining the newborn in detail, you have to think, is it due to hepatocellular or biliary obstruction? In hepatocellular disease, you will find that newborn is having the sick look, stool color is intermittently clay, not persistently, and in this elevated SGPT, SGOT will be there, and PT and APTT will be prolonged, which is not corrected by giving the vitamin K and FFP. While in the biliary obstruction, clinically child is looking well, having the persistently clay colored stool. For this, you have to examine at least minimum 3 stool samples continuously, and in this you have to examine the core area of the stool, which will be white or clay in color. And in this, elevated alkaline phosphatase and GGT level will be there. Now in hepatocellular disorders, either it is due to infective or metabolic diseases. In infective, first you have to rule out the sepsis. For this, you have to send the sepsis screening test in which CBC, CRP, IT ratio, micro ESR will be sent. And if you find that it is suggestive of the sepsis, then you have to confirm by the blood culture. If it is positive, we can say newborn is having the neonatal cholestasis due to the culture proven sepsis. If it is not suggestive of sepsis, then you have to send the TORCH titer and other viral marker. If TORCH IgM antibodies are positive for specific either for the toxoplasma, rubella or CMV or herpes, then you have to treat accordingly. If TORCH IgM antibody is negative, then rule out the other viral infections and other parasitic infection. Example HBs antigen, Epstein-Barr virus, Coxsackie virus, malaria. All these should be sent. If it is also no suggestive of the sepsis and torch infection, then send the urine analysis in which urine RM, if showing the pus cell, more than 5 pus cell in centrifuge urine and more than 10 pus cell in uncentrifuge. And if urine culture is showing the organism, that means child is having neonatal cholestasis due to UTI. It is generally missed by most of the pediatricians. So whenever you find that neonate is having the all the signs symptoms of the neonatal cholestasis and investigations are also suggestive of this, then always rule out the urinary tract infection. Metabolic disorder, if you don't find any evidence of the infection, then you have to rule out the metabolic disorders. In this, first you have to send the urine for known glucose reducing substance to rule out the galactosemia. If it is positive, then for confirmation you have to send the erythrocyte galactose 1 phosphate uridyl transferase GALT enzyme activity. It will be reduced in galactosemia. If it is also normal, then you have to send the serum ferritin and urine for succinyl acetone. If serum ferritin is elevated, then it is suggestive of hemochromatosis, and for this you have to send the confirmation by the genetic study, and if it is also not, then send the urine for succinyl acetone. If it is also elevated, then you have to think about the tyrosinemia, and for the confirmation you have to send the specific TMS. If newborn is not having galactosemia, hemochromatosis and tyrosinemia type 1, then if there is a history of sucrose or fruit juices given to the newborn, which is rarely given, but if it is given in the newborn period, then you have to send the assay of aldolase B enzyme in liver biopsy to rule out the hereditary fructose intolerance. So all these are the metabolic causes. And in metabolic, if you don't find the galactosemia, tyrosinemia, and hemochromatosis and fructosemia, then you have to send the serum alpha 1 antitrypsin level. If it is reduced, then confirm it by the presence of ZZ or SZ phenotype, which is characteristic of alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. If it is also not, if you find that newborn is having the history of delayed passage of meconium, then send the sweat chloride test. And if this elevated chloride level greater than or equal to the 60 millimole per liter in sweat chloride test, then confirmed it by the CFTR gene mutation, which is characteristic of cystic fibrosis. And if it is also not there, then send the ratio of urinary coproporphyrin 1 to coproporphyrin 3. It will be increased in Dubin-Johnson syndromes. So all these are the metabolic causes of hepatocellular involvement. If you don't find any evidence of the infection and metabolic disorder, then also see the newborn is on the TPN, total parenteral nutrition. If it is on TPN, then stop it, especially the lipid component of the TPN. If you don't find any infection and metabolic disorder, then think about endocrinal disorder. Go for the thyroid function test. If TSH is elevated and T4 is decreased, then it is due to hypothyroidism. If it is also not there, if the newborn is having the hypoglycemia or shock due to the adrenal insufficiency, also having the micropenis, midline defect, septo-optic dysplasia, then think about hypopituitarism. In this, we have to send the, if newborn is having pan-hypopituitarism, then we have to send all the hormones level, TSH, T4, early morning cortisol, brain MRI to confirm it. And in genetic disorder, if you don't find any endocrinal cause, then you have to examine the baby. If you find that dysmorphic features are there and multi-system involvement is there, then go for the karyotyping for trisomy 21, in which Down syndrome. And if GGT is disproportionately elevated 20 times of the normal value, then confirm for the Elagley syndrome by genetic testing, in which JAK1 and NOS2 gene mutation will be there. If there is no evidence of infection, metabolic and endocrinal disorder, then go for the liver biopsy. If in liver biopsy you find that giant cell transformation is there and diffuse changes are there and canalicular cholestasis is there, then it is idiopathic giant cell neonatal hepatitis, which is the most common cause of neonatal hepatitis. If newborn is having intense pruritus and GGT is low or normal, then think about PFIC, progressive familial intrahepatic cholestasis. This is of three types, 1, 2 and 3. In 1 and 2, GGT will be low or normal, while in 3, which is not present in the newborn, later on in children, in which GGT will be either elevated. And you have to confirm by the genotypic mutation in hepatocellular transport system genes, which is involved in the bile formation. Now, obstructive causes. In obstructive, in choledochal cyst, if you will go for the abdominal USG after 4 hours of fasting, you will find that bile duct is dilated or cystic, and gallbladder will be visible. It is not atretic. Now, biliary atresia. This is the most common obstructive cause of the neonatal cholestasis. In this, you will find that alkaline phosphatase is elevated, GGT is elevated, more than 300 international unit per liter. And when you will go for the abdominal USG after 4 hours of fasting, you will find that gallbladder is small, absent, atretic. It is characteristic of biliary atresia. And triangular cord sign will be there. This is specific for this. This is asked in the MCQ also. And you have to go for HIDA scan. This is not very specific. It contains low specificity. And in this, after 5 days of priming with the phenobarbital, we can send the HIDA scan. And in biliary atresia, you will find that no excretion of the bile in the intestine. It is not very specific and very time consuming, and radiation exposure is also there. So for the confirmation, we should go for the liver biopsy, in which you will find that bile duct proliferation, bile duct plug, and peribiliary fibrosis will be there. But this finding can be seen in the cystic fibrosis, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency. So always we should have the clinical sense, and we have to correlate the investigation and clinical. An intraoperative cholangiogram is the gold standard for the biliary atresia for the confirmation. Thank you.